Hello there, and welcome to Technology Essentials in Education. My name is Monica Burns, and I'm excited to welcome you to today's episode. It is a very fun conversation with Dr. Jennifer Williams. Now, I have known her for more than a decade and always admired the way that she connects technology, education, and global impact. And that's exactly what we talk about today. Jennifer is the executive director and co-founder of Take Action Global. I've had a chance to do some work with their organization in the past, and I knew that Jennifer would be the perfect person to talk to today about this topic. So we talk about what it looks like to bring climate education to a large global audience, and you'll hear about her past experiences too. She's a former school principal and the author of the book Teach Boldly. So we go through some strategies, some big ideas from the book too, and you'll hear about some of the projects that they're working on at Take Action Global in today's conversation, including some ways to bring the UN Sustainable Development Goals into lessons, activities, or just more generally that the work that you're doing. Let's get into today's conversation. This episode is brought to you by Jotform. Jotform provides an all-in-one solution to streamline administrative tasks, enhance community engagement, and foster innovation. Using their no-code drag-and-drop forms and workflows, your teams can securely collect and store data, automate tasks, and collaborate on team resources. Educational institutions are also eligible for a 30% discount on Jotform Enterprise. Head to their website to learn more. Jotform.com/enterprise/education. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to chat with you today about global uses of technology and education. But before we get into all of that, can you share with listeners a bit, what is your role in education? What does your day-to-day look like?
Hi, Monica. Thanks for having me. My name is Jennifer Williams, and I am working with a mission of climate education for all. So I get to support global educators all around the world in my role as executive director and co-founder of Take Action Global. And so we're a nonprofit organization working with a purpose of supporting educators to take action for the planet. So my job is really to make climate education feel possible for anyone, anywhere.
And you and I have known each other for probably more than a decade at this point. And, you worked in the education and technology spaces for a long time, including as a school principal too. So what was the moment for you that really shifted your view of ed tech from a classroom or an instructional tool to something that could really spark change around the world?
It's been such an interesting journey. And I think your and my experiences kind of went in parallel, but your background, I know, in science, mine in
Mhm,
literacy. So I didn't start in educational technology.
mhm.
And I just kind of became curious about it. And it was, 15 years ago when it was really new. We had some new tools in the classroom. Our school devices had landed. We were one-to-one. So it was just something I was curious about. And I started to see where ed tech was coming out of the IT room. So
Yeah. Mhm.
individual classroom teachers could be ed tech enthusiasts and find ways to bring it into instructional practices. And so I think in the early days for us, it really was tool-centric.
Yeah.
And because that was what was new and that was what was available for us to learn about. But then when it became this, and it was this shift, really, this quick shift, less about the tool and more about what we could do together. For me personally, it was finding ways to use technology to connect people. So having our students work with people who may live and look differently from them through things like virtual exchange or
Mhm.
using collaborative technologies and these different practices. And so that was kind of this shift. And so using technology for a purpose and having students be able to create and collaborate, that was an exciting time. And then when we added in things, which I'm sure we'll dive into today, around the sustainable development goals
Mhm.
and really having some roadmaps to help guide our students and teachers along that journey, this is where things started, I think, to really see the power within it.
Yeah. And just, I love that you kind of started there with, where on your journey and similar, for me too, things were really about what can this tool do, right? Or what this level of curiosity around these different tools and resources that we had placed in front of us or that we had gone out to find because we heard stories or things that people were working on. And then that shift into really identifying the purpose and the intention and connecting that to a mission, right? In many cases. So when you work with educators who are in different parts of the world, what are some things they tend to have in common?
Mm. So this is something I've been really observing most recently in the past few years, especially is this idea of role by assignment, which actually
Mhm.
connects to what we were just talking about, which we were seeing a while back. But I think I'm starting to see teachers not just being locked into the role they've been given. So they're
Mhm.
starting to say, well, I joined into this school and I was told, all right, we're hiring right now for a second grade teacher or for a librarian, or maybe something that our colleagues hadn't yet been trained for. But then once they're locked into that role, they're saying, okay, so now that is my identity.
Yeah.
I am a second grade teacher because I've been deemed that. But what I think we're starting to see right now globally is teachers understanding that they can expand that role. So I might be a second grade
Mhm.
teacher, but maybe I am interested in ed tech, or maybe I am interested in global education or climate, and opportunities for them to have these leadership roles within their school. So bringing in new forms of professional development, bringing in new opportunities for their
Mhm.
students to collaborate, and finding ways that that global stage can really amplify the work that they're doing. So I always know teachers are a curious bunch, but I feel like we're starting to see where teachers are using technology in that way, which really has evolved in the past like 5 to 6 years, I think. And um, possibilities are open and
Mhm.
endless for our teachers.
And I would imagine just the conversations that are happening in different corners, of the world, particularly around, folks who are seeing their role as maybe not being just one thing, right? Or there being these different layers. And so just that bouncing off ideas, right? Even if someone might be in a different spot, right? They may have something that resonates with them, particularly if they feel like their role might be a bit more expansive, than just the title, right, that they have. And
Yeah.
so, as you are helping facilitate, right, some of these moments of collaboration, of sharing, what are some of the biggest challenges about supporting educators in different countries?
Hmm. I think for us, really, with our work at Take Action Global, but really what I see in education and my role as an educator always goes back to access. So
Hmm.
for us, when we're thinking about climate education, which really has such unevenness within
Hmm.
access globally, something we all are experiencing with climate change and with what we're seeing environmentally. So the access to resources definitely uneven. So we're trying to work with what we have to make sure that everyone, teachers, students, community members, have that access. So access to ideas, information, opportunity. And then within my role, which is a lot around instructional design, I'm able to move through asset-based community development. So
Hmm.
finding ways for our classrooms to say, these are the resources in front of me. And now what can we do with those? An example of that, we have a fun program we're working on the past few years with the Lego group. So Lego Build the
Hmm.
Change. And we are finding ways for students to use playful learning experiences to build the change.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about different topics each month, and it can be something as simple as create an invention to clean the ocean.
Mhm.
And so not everyone's going to have access to Lego bricks. So what we're doing through our instructional design is saying, use whatever is in front of you.
Mhm.
And so that might be recycled materials, arts and crafts. You can use sticks, anything you have in front of you, which sometimes those become the most creative
Yeah.
solutions that we
Uh-huh.
see. And then position those items in a way that help tell your story. So we're working through our instructional design process to make sure that everyone, anyone, anywhere can participate in these types of experiences. So for us, starting with access, which I think is what we're, of course, there's always time, but I do think access for our teachers is the critical challenge that we've been addressing most recently.
Yeah, and I would imagine, when you are working with groups that have different needs, different levels of access, right? Just the logistics, right, become a big piece of this. And, you mentioned already some of the projects that you all are working on and kind of bringing people together for all of that. So tell us more about Take Action Global. What types of projects are you currently working on?
Yeah, so we're having so much fun. So we have teachers joining us, and they are representative. I think we're at 190 countries right now. So we've almost reached them all. We only have
Yeah.
a few more, and across every content area, every grade level. And so that in itself can be an interesting design challenge. How do you build a lesson or a project for the world? But we've had some projects that we've been working on for a long time. One that we've been working on for just a few years that just launched out this week is called Coding for Climate. And this one is really exciting for us because it empowers any teacher to be able to bring computer science into
Yeah.
his or her classroom. So it's a three-phase approach to learning where we start with phase one. We always kick it off with environmental topic. So teachers can work with their students and think, do they want to work on something that's going to impact the land, water, energy, the ocean? And then we gamify it. So then they pick a league, and we have 4 leagues: the energy league, the land league, water league, ocean league.
Mhm.
And then they associate their classroom with other groups around the world who are caring about that topic. So phase one helps get them all geared up for phase two, which is where we introduce coding solutions. So coding for us, super loose because we are talking about programming and coding, but we're also incorporating other big topics in education
Mhm.
right now, like AI. We're talking about web design. We have some classrooms who are working in an unplugged analog environment. So they can make that their own, which then leads them into phase three, my favorite part, which is all about collaboration. So
Mhm.
classrooms taking that learning, getting it outside of the school space, putting it into a virtual library where other students can learn about their ideas and their solutions. And then we wrap it up on Earth Day. But this project will run all year long. So classrooms can join in. And then we have, of course, the Climate Action Project, which will kick off in fall, and it comes back every fall. So we'd love to have teachers learn about that and join in if they're interested.
A quick note from the presenter of today's episode, Jotform. Jotform lets you build a form in minutes. Student survey forms, homework submission forms, online quizzes, and so much more. You can start from scratch, or if you want to get a head start, check out their collection of free form templates designed with teachers, schools, and districts in mind. Learn more about Jotform and how educational institutions can get 30% discount on Jotform Enterprise. Head to their website to learn more. Jotform.com/enterprise/education. Yeah, and what I love about the work that you all do and the projects that you have is just how accessible it is for different groups. Even something where someone might hear the term coding and say like, oh, I don't know if that's for me. Like, you give so many entry points for educators who want to participate with their group, and I think that's something that really makes the work that you do so ready for someone, right, who feels that pull, right, has that level of curiosity, right, or passion already around these topics to take that next step and jump in. And one thing you mentioned around technology that is something everyone, right, wants to talk about, right, is AI, right? And this fact that we're in this, sort of AI revolution in education. And a lot of times, I know we talk about using AI for productivity, and definitely that has a place, but is there a way to use it as a tool for equity and solving, the UN Sustainable Development Goals? Are there any connections there that a listener, might appreciate knowing about?
Mhm. A lot of teachers are really curious. I think that's what we're hearing about how they can incorporate AI. What is their role,
Yeah.
I think, right now? And so I know you've been doing a lot of this work for a long time. Some teachers are only just hearing about AI for the first time this year. So I do feel like it's our responsibility all together to be asking these types of questions around equity and keeping that at the center of the work that we're doing. We on our side are really and have been incorporating AI into our work for a while now. So
Mhm.
incorporating it into instructional practices, into our projects, but also into our technology. So we have our homegrown platforms, we have an app. So we're trying to find ways to incorporate our AI into our technology that can be supportive of our global community. So for instance, one thing is around language. If we
Mhm.
have teachers from 190 countries, we're going to be facilitating in English, but to be able to better serve them, we're really trying to have languages and accessible communication that is at the core of the work that we're doing.
Mhm.
What we also found is professional development. So a lot of us in education come from our training that did not incorporate
Yeah.
AI. And so we have, in the past, I think 2 years, we started working. This is one program that we run through the US State Department around bringing cohorts of educators from
Mhm.
different parts of the world through US embassies. And some of those topics can be around climate or social good with the UN SDGs. But in the past 2 years, we've been doing one around future forward
Mhm.
global learning. And that has a heavy emphasis on equity with AI. And so we are bringing teachers together in these virtual spaces to explore different technologies. Yes, efficiency, productivity, I think is really an easy way for teachers to get in, but we've loved having them see, for us at least, what we think the real power is perspective taking with AI.
Mhm.
And so being able to use AI for research, for feedback, I
Yeah.
think that has been really great. They're able to see different perspectives in the groups that we're working with. But AI has been a really powerful tool with a perspective taking. And I think as we become more globalized as a
Mhm.
society, AI is going to really help us to think through that process better.
Yeah, and just those examples you gave from a language and access piece, from a
Yeah.
productivity as an entry point, and then just understanding, right, what it might look like to go deeper, right, are all things that we want groups of educators to have a sense of, even if they're not maybe in the tools every day, right, just understanding what's possible for them, for their students, for, others that they might come into contact with. And you mentioned the social good connection, right, to this work. And of course, that connection to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. You have a book called Teach Boldly. And, as we think about social good, right, these connections to global experiences for educators, what does it mean for a teacher to teach boldly?
Mm-hmm. So, and even the title, I remember when we were working on our book with Teach Boldly, just the title Teach alone, like boldly, I felt strong and
Yeah.
confident with, but the word teach, I think for us, we, the best way to teach boldly in my mind is really around this idea of learning.
Mhm.
And so for our teachers, when for so long people would say to me, like, let's find ways to get us as teachers out of the front of the classroom
Mhm.
and pose these questions to our students that um, we might not necessarily have the answers to, which when as teachers we know the answers, that might feel artificial
Yeah.
and difficult. But when we do pose questions, especially around these topics with social good, and with things like climate change, where we really don't know the answers, even going back to AI, where
Yeah.
it's something that we need to be vulnerable about. And so I feel like with right now with learning, where we can go in and co-construct and be right alongside our students as learners, this is a really powerful time. So I think for us, Teach Boldly, it's about not having all the answers and being willing to learn, and be open about that.
And just that bringing that perspective into, this tricky conversation, right? Or big conversation around AI, right? And then of course, the work that you do with Take Action Global, right? There's a lot that someone could take from that. I don't know if I want to say like the mission maybe is the right word, right? Of teaching boldly. And so if someone is listening today, if the global education community, right, is here, right, listening to our conversation and wants to make one collective bold move, let's say, in the next decade or even in the next 5 years when we see things like AI moving so quickly, what do you
Mhm.
hope that move is?
Mm. I love questions like this. I was asked a question last week. I was on a call with a marketing team, and they had marketing in mind, of course, but they
Yeah.
said if in the next few years there was a newspaper that had coverage of this work, what would the headline read? And like instantly, I was like, teachers solve the climate crisis. My work's on climate. So, but
Hmm.
I love this idea of teachers united, and use this word
Hmm.
collective. We are a powerful force. And when we globally could come together to solve something big like climate
Yeah.
change or education equity, and we're talking about AI, this is a special moment for us. So I really do have a lot of hope that we as teachers can be a part of creating positive change and help others to be thinking about these big topics around equity, because we are serving these students that are going to be making these big decisions going forward in the future. So I think for me, the one thing that teachers can do is just to be starting to ask those questions
Hmm.
and not feel like they have to have those answers, and then find out other people who they could share those questions with. This is something I'm curious about. Have you heard of this? I'd love to learn more from you. And that can be a beginning point. Then how can we bring those answers together to give back to this growing body of knowledge? So much research is needed right now. And I
Hmm.
think that could be the role that we serve. So I'm eager to see what happens going forward. And I absolutely have faith in our teachers that we're going to be the group to do it.
I love that idea of just coming together, right? That collective movement, right? All underneath that mission. And, what a wonderful way for us to wrap up, right, our conversation together today with just that push for people to ask questions, come together, and really build community, right, around this work. So, as listeners are maybe looking for more info, want to jump into resources that you have a bit more, where can they connect with you? Where can they learn more about your work?
Great. Yes, we'd love to hear from anyone that's interested in this work around social good. We have a community of teachers globally. So if you've ever thought, hey, I'd love to have my classroom connect with students in a different part of the world in a safe way, we'd love to have you join in. So if people go to takeactionglobal.org, that's our website, and that will get you to the right place. Of course, they can email me, send me a message on social media, and I'd love to connect with them. But I appreciate you hosting this call today, Monica. It's been a fun conversation.
Thank you so much for joining. It was so much fun chatting with Dr. Jennifer Williams today, and I want to finish up this episode with a few highlights, a few key points from our conversation. First, the most powerful shift in ed tech has been moving from tool-centric thinking to using technology to connect people and solve real problems. Access is a critical challenge in global education, and designing with an asset based approach helps meet educators where they are. AI can be a tool for equity and perspective taking, not just productivity and efficiency. Teaching boldly means being willing to pose questions you don't have answers to and learning alongside students and colleagues. Don't forget to follow along with Jennifer's work. She shared about the work happening at Take Action Global and ways to connect with her. And of course, make sure to like and subscribe this episode so that you will find new video updates in the Technology Essentials and Education feed. A big thank you to Jotform, the presenter of today's episode. To learn more about Jotform and how educational institutions can get a 30% discount on Jotform Enterprise, head to jotform.com/enterprise/education.